Welcome to What You Missed When You Didn't Exist. This is the show.
This is the show.
This is the show. I am Corbett, and I am 52.
And I am Lucy, and I am freshly turned 23. What?
Yeah, you've really ruined our rhythm.
Sorry.
We were a perfect 30 years apart, and now I'm getting younger.
You're getting younger? I don't think that's how that works. You'll turn 53 soon enough. It'll be fine.
Sure. It's fine. So anyway, what you missed when you didn't exist. This time around, we're talking about, well, specifically Lady Diana.
Princess Diana.
Princess Diana. Well, when I first saw her, she was Lady Diana. So there you go.
Oh, sorry.
She paid for the upgrade.
Paid in what sense, Dad?
Specifically, what I was wanting to talk about was the royal wedding. The royal wedding was a big deal in 1981. And it was annoying as all get out to me because in 1981, I was still like barely 10 years old. In fact, I just turned 10 years old because it was at the end of July. It was during a summer. And so as a kid in America, you had the whole day ready to roll. So you were ready to watch TV or go do whatever. And this was a day when I pretty much went and did whatever all day long because there was nothing on television except the royal wedding. My mother really wanted to watch it and basically watched every bit of footage she could because for Americans, it was a big deal because it was Disney come true. Because they tried to play up Lady Diana as being this little nobody, but I mean, she's still part of the royal family.
Yeah,
And,
it was still like approved and whatnot.
Yeah, still approved and went through the motions, but she was considered a common person to a certain, for their purposes, she was considered a common person. So it was like the little librarian who is in the corner, and then the prince comes in and whisks her off of her feet, and away they go. And she had this gigantic poofy white dress and was drawn all over the place in this carriage. The procession, I feel like it started at 6 a.m. American, like Eastern time, I think, which is crazy. But it lasted all day. It was a wedding. It was a wedding to end all weddings.
Mm-hmm.
Prince Charles was, I guess, still young and dashing at the time. I don't know.
Probably looks better than he does now.
Well, younger for sure. That was 40 years ago, so it definitely was a while back.
Mm-hmm.
But they were whisked away in a magical carriage, and everything was wonderful and everything was amazing until it wasn't. I'm sorry to tell you, some of this has a bad ending on a lot of levels.
What? No way.
Yeah, they wind up getting divorced because of his indiscretions, which apparently happens a lot more than you would think. Not that I'm saying, ladies, don't worry, I'm sure your man is safe, but it's just more in the royal courts. Apparently, it's kind of they whimsically jump from bed to bed. Apparently, I don't know.
Well, you gotta let off some stress from, ruling the world somehow. So I guess that's a good way to do it.
You should learn ping pong.
What? What? What?
It's just sort of weird. It was weird because they were portrayed as wildly in love.
Yeah.
And thrown into it. And apparently there was some friction between the Queen Mother, Queen Elizabeth, who has now passed away, and Lady Diana, soon to become Princess Diana. And I don't know exactly what that friction was, and I'm sure for those of you who follow the crown know exactly what it was. But they just didn't get along. Shocking. Mother-in-law and daughter-in-law don't get along. Not a big surprise, really.
Yes.
Further, Princess dies in a tragic car accident. There was a lot of conspiracy theories behind her death about the chauffeur was in on a plan. It was a secret conspiracy theory to do this, that, and the other. But sometimes dumb stuff happens. I mean, people die in car accidents. They happen a lot. It can happen to the wealthy and the powerful just as easily as it could happen to us schlubs. I don't know how good or bad that is, but I will say there was a lot of pageantry that went into, almost as much pageantry that went into the wedding, that went into her funeral.
She was really beloved, wasn't she?
Well, she was very beloved, but she ran several charities and worked with different groups trying to foster peace and feed the hungry, and she was always doing all kinds of stuff, and she was using her celebrity to endorse good things. Well, as far as I know, they were good things.
Hmm.
And if you go into the conspiracy theory, you could say, oh, well, she was doing something else. And that, you know what? I really don't have time for conspiracy theories. I barely have time for normal theories. So she was a person who was doing something nice and something bad happened to her. And you know what? That just happens.
Hmm.
I would love to tell you that I was totally broken up and just shocked when she passed away. And I really wasn't. It was sad. It was as sad as anybody dying. But
Hmm.
I wasn't following her nearly as much as other people were. If anything, as a young boy, I was more annoyed with her because her wedding took over my whole day for, I think it was like a couple days after my birthday. It was like it was at the end of July. I remember
You couldn't watch your Captain Kangaroo for the day? Ruined.
that.
Totally ruined.
That's kind of true. I didn't get to watch Captain Kangaroo that day. And I'm sure now somebody's going to come up with the conspiracy theory. Aha! It was Corbett. He was the one. Oh, brother.
Yes, a 10-year-old boy in Texas had this big plot.
Well, I've gotten better, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. That's comforting. Okay, so technically not the first televised wedding, because that was Elizabeth and Philip's wedding. So
Right.
was it like the next big filmed wedding that was the royal wedding?
I would probably guess. In the royal British family, yes, absolutely. I think there was Princess Grace of Monaco was one of the
Oh.
bigger ones because she was Grace Kelly, the movie star,
Mm-hmm.
who had literally the storybook wedding, and she died tragically in a car accident too.
Mm.
As far as thinking of the first big televised wedding, it's the first big British televised wedding for sure. And you have to realize that at the time they were expecting Charles would be the next successor as king.
Yes.
Any children he spawned would be that second successor. So it was like watching the new lineage come into view. I don't think that's a funny thing. Even though Charles is currently king, I'm kind of surprised he is.
Because why?
Well, during the whole divorce between Diana and Prince Charles, they really kind of slammed him because he was the one who got caught cheating. It wasn't her.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like a little librarian sneaking around behind the noble prince. Well, we could expect that, but the noble prince being bad, we can't expect that. Who could imagine somebody in power abusing it to do what they want to do? Seems unlikely altogether.
Uh-huh.
But now that we've reached the future, actually, what do you even have an opinion on Princess Di? I mean, other than like an iconic figure that she might as well be Andre the Giant for you. Because does she have any meaning for you at all?
I think I know I've always grown up seeing her as one of the major fashion icons just because she wore that like little black revenge dress after they caught Charles.
Uh,
And I know it's an interesting kind of scandal to see him married to Camilla, which was, I believe, who he cheated on Diana with.
well, he committed to somebody, so there you go.
Well, yeah, he got there eventually. But I don't think the queen actually hated Princess Diana. I think she kind of empathized with her a little bit. Because in watching The Crown, I've noticed that Philip wasn't always the best husband. And so I guess she kind of empathized with Diana, but also realized that in her role as holding the crown, that she needed to take the situation and make it over, like just get it done with.
I definitely got the impression that she took her responsibilities pretty seriously. I think the only thing was she wanted to help the poor and the needy and things like that. And I think royalty didn't appreciate that because who's more needy than the royals? And I think because of her outside perspective, in a vague way, I say outside, but she's like generally part of the royal family and then married into it. I really got the impression she was the outsider coming in.
Hmm. I think she was, yeah.
Yeah, they portrayed that in the news reports at the time. Because I remember it was very much like, oh, you're not a real royal, you're kind of a fake royal. Like she was somehow by marriage, she was part of the thing. I'm sure there's a direct lineage and somebody's mapped it out so well.
Hmm.
But it's just the way it was portrayed that she's the little girl of the village who wound up being the princess after all. And she carried a lot of that responsibility with her. Even after she was Princess Di, she became Lady Di again, I guess. Well, I presume she still held. No, she couldn't still hold the title. That wouldn't make any sense.
No, I think you do hold the title a little bit.
Well, I mean, she did have the royal children.
Yeah.
So she is, still a queen mother to a certain respect. I don't know how that works. That's some crazy stuff going on there.
Crazy lineage
I would say it's so much
stuff.
easier when we just vote people in, but I wouldn't say that's been very great the last few couple of years. So yeah, might as well have them just married and.
Oh my gosh. Got to keep that line going.
Well, then you know what you're dealing with. Like, oh well, it's so and so's son, so you know they're gonna get it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I know all of well, okay, not all. That's a big generalization, but most of Britain was kind of upset when Charles took to the throne because they knew he was going to be not the best.
I don't get the impression that he's not the best. I just get the impression that he's like not the real choice. Not the
Mm,
first choice, not the first string. How about that?
yeah.
I think, well, but that's kind of like looking at Elizabeth. I mean, she was thrust into it because her dad passed away
Hmm.
and she was thrown into what should not have been. I mean, she probably would have been married off and the way she went and things go on like normal.
Hmm.
She became the queen and had all
Yeah.
these responsibilities dumped on her. I think the difference there is that Charles probably kind of got used to the idea of not having to worry about it.
Yeah, that's true. We also got it so old. Like Queen Elizabeth got it when she was so young, like in her 20s or something, maybe 30s.
I do remember reading a journal entry from her. Something where she had talked about her first day on the job. Her
Hmm.
first day on the job, she met Winston Churchill, and he told her, like, this is how we should do things. And she told him how we're going to do things. And I mean, that's Winston freaking Churchill.
Yeah.
And this young girl kind of wanders in and is like, this is what's going to be like. And I'm sure she was probably more intimidated than that, but at the same time, I think she learned from her father, how to be in charge of things. She would have had to have.
Yeah, for sure. You get raised into it in some aspect, even though like you may not expect it, but it gets thrust upon you. Oh, actually, you would like watching The Crown, not
Oh dear.
because of Matt Smith, but because John Lithgow is Winston Churchill, and he does a
Oh,
really good job of playing Winston Churchill.
I do like John Lithgow.
It's cool seeing him with a British accent.
Well, he's a good actor. Again, you say I wouldn't want to watch it because of Matt Smith, but I'm sure a good actor's a good actor.
Well,
When
yeah.
you see a good actor, it like doesn't matter the role they're in. You're like, oh, I know this is going to be good.
Well, yeah.
If I see like Ben Kingsley in a role, I know it's going to be good. I just don't know how
Yeah.
because he can be really funny or very dramatic. Gary Oldman's another one like that. Like he is
Hmm.
a mimic or a chameleon in his roles,
Oh,
but I
yeah, yeah.
still know he's going to like absorb that role and become it. This is why Meryl Streep is always like, oh, Meryl Streep. Like Meryl Streep like buries herself in her roles.
Oh, yeah, she does.
But anyway, yeah. Good advertisement for The Crown. Good job. Now we'll get that Netflix money we've been hoping for.
Sorry, I'm just saying you would like it because of John Lithgow.
No, I'm sure it's a good show. Actually, I know it has to be a good show. It's been running for a while and people have been raving about it.
Yeah.
I know my mother really, really likes it. And she's always kind of followed the royals, the British royals, way more than I ever was interested in.
Mm.
I mean, I just kind of got the idea of, okay, so there's a king and the king hands the crown down to the prince and the prince becomes the next king and so forth and so on. Got it.
Yeah.
And it's really, I mean, my knowledge of British royalty pretty much extends to Disney royalty. So there's the brave king and the wicked stepmother queen who banishes her child out into the woods and they eat poison apples or something. I don't know.
What Disney films are you watching?
The British ones.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I watch all the famous British actors, like Julie Andrews and Dick Van Dyke.
Oh, yeah. Great. I'm glad you named two people.
Okay, the real joke there is Dick Van Dyke is American.
Well,
They were in Mary
whatever.
Poppins.
I know they were in Mary Poppins. Bah.
It's always funny when somebody says, "My favorite British actor is Dick Van Dyke." And every
Oh,
British
yeah.
person in the room turns to you and says, "What?"
Oh yeah, because I guess he was Cockney in Mary Poppins, wasn't he?
He had a Cockney thing going on.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
It's
Um, wow, we got really far off from Princess Diana.
a little bit.
So, okay, in terms of the conspiracy theory behind her death, do you
Mhm.
think that there's a conspiracy theory there? Or do you just, I mean, I know you kind of said it at the beginning that, like, it was just a car accident and people get into car accidents, but do you
Mhm.
think that it could have been a scheme of some kind?
I think it could have been as much as my wild imagination will take me. I point to this joke. It's that Mitchell and Webb show. It's a British show, so there you go. And they have a sketch comedy show they put out called the Mitchell and Webb Look. It's the two comedians. They make a joke of conspiracy theory. They do one with Lady Di and kind of point out, like, oh, we've got to make this look like an accident and go through all the effort it would take to make it look like an accident. It's like, it'd be easier if it just happened accidentally. Don't be silly. We have to make this look like it really happened. I think the way every time they've done their little conspiracy theory joke, because they do it 2 or 3 times, I remember in a couple episodes. The one that makes this sticks out in my mind the most is the we need to convince the world that we landed on the moon. Can we show them the footage of us landing on Mars? Like, no, that's too much because we've already done that and we don't want to show them that. We want to show them landing on the moon. It's like, okay, well, what's the expense on making it look like we landed on the moon? Well, the main expense is building a giant rocket. Like, why would we build a giant rocket if we're not going to the moon? Yeah, but people are going to say, hey, how did you get to the moon? Oh, remember that giant rocket? Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So then we'll have to film it in a secure location, and everybody's going to have to be sworn to secret, all these stagehands and all this stuff. It's like, okay, it sounds like a lot of effort. It does. But what's the biggest expense out of that? Really building that giant rocket. Well, give me this idea. What if we take the giant rocket and go to the moon and film the fake moon landing on the moon and then fly it back?
Oh my gosh.
Because that makes the most sense.
Mhm.
And it's kind of the same thing with the Lady Di. You go through all these conspiracy theories and all these labored ideas of this and that and the other. And you know what? Yeah, sure, it's possible. I mean, it's like the JFK assassination type conspiracy theories. Anything could be possible, but if you keep throwing out random stuff, you're just aggravating a system of something that just happened. I think it's people, we want to have a reason. Things can't just accidentally happen.
Yeah.
The Hindenburg didn't just accidentally spark and explode. Like somebody wanted that balloon to go down. The Titanic
Mhm.
didn't just pop a hole and sink. It had to be something that caused it. We all look
Mm.
for, I guess we look for a reason to find some kind of sanity in life. Everything is a whirlwind of chaos. If something is happening for a reason, then you can say, oh, yes, it's because of that massive rocket we launched. That must be how we did that. I'm like,
Mhm.
or we just did it. And it's just the simple solution is sometimes the way it goes. Things that I think one of the other conspiracies was the Queen wanted to have her removed because she was a threat to her. Like, I doubt that because, she's the Queen of England.
Yeah.
There's very, very, very few people who are a threat to her. And to be fair, again, I go back to her talking to Winston Churchill and telling him what he's gonna do. And like he's the guy who literally had to kill a town in order to save England. And this little girl is telling him what to do. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I doubt she's gonna be threatened by somebody.
Yeah,
as
that's
as as
pretty
much
fair.
as we want to make sense of it, as much as we want to have something a specific reason, sometimes people just die in car accidents, and that sucks.
Mm,
That you could say like, oh, we need to make safer cars. We need to outlaw cars. Like, well, you can do whatever, but you know what? We take a risk every day we wake up.
yeah. Wow, that was deep, Dad. Mind blown.
There you go.
Uh-huh. You did great. Good
Yeah,
job.
thank you.
Hmm.
I tried real hard. So anyway, I think we've covered a big chunk of it, and we've talked a lot about nothing. So
Yeah.
I'm really sorry for anybody who came in to listen to hear about the real details.
You should expect less from the show at this point, but
I think so.
or you should know what to expect when you listen to what you missed when you didn't exist at this
That's
point.
true.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so from what you missed if you didn't exist, I'm Corbett, and I'll see you next time.
And I'm Lucy. Bye.